Almost home free, out the door, but nope. The day on the register was generally fine. A few annoying experiences, but that's how it goes. I've clocked out, AM coming down to leave. Almost to the exit, a man basically rushes me with his cart. No hi, or excuse me, or anything. I'm asking you to check on an item, he says. Slightly taken aback, I tell him I'm off the clock. Let me get someone to help you. There's a manager a few steps away, and I ask him to come over. Man proceeds to blurt out, it doesn't matter if you're off the clock, in a very bad tone. Yes, it does, actually. It's not allowed to work off the clock. I would have had to get someone for you in any case because I'm a cashier. I can't check on item availability myself. I just kinda stared and turned and left. I hope he has a horrible weekend. Why can't people just ... be sensible?
I won't break safety protocol just because you're in a hurry. I work as a merchandiser in a big box store. I delegate sales, product knowledge questions to whichever department I'm working in that day. If it's an inventory-related thing, I can usually help. A customer approached me while I was working on clearance and asked if I could get something down for him. When I asked him to point it out, he was rather brief and impatient, even offering to get on the ladder and get it himself. Definitely a safety violation. What he was requesting was not only high, but also had a ton on other merchandise stacked on top. Even if I was 10 feet tall, it would have been nearly impossible to get it down from the top rung without pulling it out directly and having all these other boxes going flying everywhere. I turned to him and told him that it wasn't happening without a machine. We use power lifts for things that are too high, big or bulky to get down with a ladder. He complained to his friend it was ridiculous that I needed power equipment for something so simple. I didn't care. I've fallen off a ladder before at a past job, and I was surely not risking it happening for someone this rude. A couple minutes later, I returned to the aisle driving the machine. Unsurprisingly, they were gone, probably to go to a competitor. I decided that since I was there, I'd downstock the item anyway. If they returned, it would be there. If not, someone nicer could buy it. My supervisor said I made a good call and thanked me for keeping myself and others safe.
I'm so embarrassed. I had my first rude customer that really dug under my skin. Usually I go with the flow and don't care if the customer is rude. They were doing a return of a lot of stuff, multiple receipts, and all purchased with a card that was closed. We put the returns on gift cards for them, but one item just wouldn't work. It would only go back to the original tender. To make a long story short, they kept saying I was doing a poor job. Demanded to see multiple managers and said I was an idiot. I've been at this job for a little over 3 weeks. And to add the cherry on top, the coworker who was trying to help me yelled at one of my managers saying that they lost 3 sales because I needed help. I tried so hard to stop myself from crying, but the waterworks started. I just want to crawl into a hole and die.
This has no flavor and self-imposed discounts. I own a small game store cafe in a small town. I'm the only one within 45 miles, but there's still competition asterisk from farther stores as people out here are used to driving long distances already. I have lots of stories from the time I opened, and I've learned a lot. Also, while this story does involve coffee, my primary business is retail. This day it was fairly quiet. We had a couple shoppers here and there, but otherwise not so busy. My husband was helping me this day, and while he does his best, I'm still more adept at making coffees. This didn't matter here though. Generally, when people would come in and order a coffee, first thing we would get it made and give it to them while they continue to shop. Cashing them out right away was something that I, at the time, concluded would create more hesitation in additional purchases. No one wants to stand at the counter and scan their cards multiple times in a row. I've since learned that people actually don't mind that, and frequently when they're here for long hours, it's as though it's a competition to see how many times they can scan their cards for a couple dollars at a time in one visit. One regular's personal best was 9. We've begun running tabs. A couple came in, first-time visitors, though I wouldn't call them customers. They each ordered coffees, frappes, I think, vanilla. They continued to browse, so my husband just jumped on making them while I tidied up around him. They received their drinks and sat down in our comfy chairs to chat. Then the man brings his back. No flavor, he said. Weird, considering I was sure I'd seen him put just as much vanilla in as I normally do. And I had tasted it before, made the same way, and thought it was fantastic, but I added more. So at this point, the drink had probably 10 pumps of vanilla in it, blended it back up, and gave it to him. I was feeling particularly anxious about this screw-up. We were a fairly new shop at the time and still learning the ropes, trying to entice customers to come back or to visit in the first place. How could we have screwed up something so simple? Surely these people wouldn't be coming back, and I had failed. They thanked me and continued to chat, shopping around a bit, enthused about how the coffee finally had enough flavor. And we got busy doing other things, helping someone else at the counter, cleaning, etc. Discussing how we'd made the coffee and how we could do better. Then, they left. No transaction had been rung up. They never approached the counter to attempt to pay. No, they simply left, over-vanilled fraps and all. I blame this partially on myself, as I hadn't stopped them on the way out, partially on my husband, as he had handled the order, and partially on the 2 people who complained about the flavor of the coffee and left without paying. I've never seen them again. Lesson learned, new visitors always pay for the coffees up front. Also, some people truly do have dead taste buds.
Customer thinks that because he shops at our store so much, he should be able to shop past the time we close. We've all had those customers who come in pretty close to closing to shop. I'm also pretty sure we've had those people who think that they have all the time in the world to shop just because they made it in the store before the doors shut. However, that is not the case. If you're a couple minutes past closing, that's usually fine, but it's not when you plan to spend another 15 minutes or so longer. So, around 5 minutes to closing time at the store I work at, there was still one customer shopping with a grocery cart. He is a regular customer. The 15-minute and 5-minute closing announcements had been done. When we do the 5-minute announcement, we politely ask that all customers still in the store bring up their items so that we can finish up our closing procedures and go home. Usually, us cashiers aren't too bad about late shoppers who are cutting it close, but it was really annoying to see someone with a full cart still strolling around. The time we closed came around, and we had to do a "we're officially closed, please bring your items up to the front" kind of announcement, and this guy kept on walking. The people in grocery reminded him that we were closing, and that he could come back tomorrow to get the last things he was missing, but he ignored them. Eventually, my coworker on till told the man that we were closed and that she would bring his groceries through. He turned to her and said, "Do you know how much money I spend at your store?" She replied, "I understand, but we are still closed and we have to ask you to pay for the groceries you have now and come back tomorrow." Thankfully, the man finally went through her till, though he was still pretty annoyed that he had been asked to leave. He complained a bit more, but my coworker kindly explained that when we closed, we have a couple more things that need to be done after all the customers are out and we unfortunately won't be paid overtime.
I provided a full quote and they still messed up the order. Customer wanted a quote on 3 items. On each item we have 3 different brands they can choose from. Think how you can buy a battery from Duracell, Energizer, or some other brand, so I sent over pictures, pricing, and availability via email. Despite having all the information in front of them, they still messed up the order. Item number 1 had the wrong size listed, which is not only discontinued and is from a completely different brand than they wanted. I didn't even put that on the quote. Item number 2 was listed on the order twice, but with different quantities. Item number 3 was also listed on the order, as well as different quantities. This one also had an additional wrinkle, where one line was from one brand, the other from a different brand. The one brand is way more expensive, so it doesn't make much sense to order that one.
How to spend your break, according to a customer. I was cashiering in the lawn and garden center at my store. When I was trained as a cashier, there was no training on the products throughout the store, just how to scan the product and the basics of customer service. Therefore, I really don't know anything about the plants and trees and flowers. That's the associate's job. They stock them, so they know where they are located. The store phones will often not be useful in the location, due to getting multiple lawn and garden trucks during the week and the associates moving things around to make room for new products. But ultimately, I don't know boo about whether this plant or that flower will thrive in full sun, or if the ferns are still outside, or if they moved them again. As a cashier, you are not allowed to leave your register to roam around or help the customer find something. My job is to ring you up, and that's it. The clientele in lawn and garden is mostly pleasant people looking to build their gardens or buy a lovely hydrangea for their mother. But often, at least in every shift, there is one person who feels slighted because you have no knowledge. Older lady comes up, has a buggy full of plants and flowers. She began putting the plants one by one on the counter and asking questions about them, to which I would answer, "I don't know and I'm not sure." I offered to find an associate for her, but she just waved her hand like it was no big deal. By about the 5th plant, after I had said yet again that I didn't know, she pulls her sunglasses off, looks me in the eye, clearly exasperated, and says, "How can you work out here and know nothing about the plants?" I told her that I was rotated throughout the store like the other cashiers and that we are not trained to know the products we are selling, and that because we are not allowed to leave the register, I can't really familiarize myself with the plants and flowers. I asked again if she'd like me to find an associate who does know the products. She said she didn't have time to wait for someone. I plucked the plastic label from one of her plants out of the soil and showed her the bat. It tells a bit about the care of the plant. And also, there is a QR code that you can scan with your phone that will help too. I was sincerely trying to be helpful, but she took that as being snarky. I could tell by the way she gave me a long stare. As she finished paying, she put her glasses back on and said nonchalantly, "Do you have a break coming up?" Odd question, but I checked the clock and said, "Yes ma'am, I have a break in about 30 minutes. She said, "Well, perhaps on your break, you can walk around out here and learn something." I wished her a good day. I took my break 30 minutes later, sat in my car, listened to Primus, ate a Slim Jim, and took a nap like normal. Perhaps when she got home that day, she looked up the plants she bought and learned something.